Welcome to Raaonline. I am Dr. Sudakshina, Professor of Anatomy. Today I am going to discuss about the clinical aspects associated with auditory tube. Definitely we will be covering the anatomy of auditory tube. What is the difference in auditory tube between the children and the adults, and certain clinical aspects which are associated with the functioning of the auditory tube. So coming to the auditory tube as such, if you see that it is also called a pharyngotympanic tube. Okay, and it is a trumpet shaped structure. In shape it is trumpet shaped, and what does it do? It connects the middle cavity. So if you see over here, this is the middle cavity, and this is it is connecting the middle cavity and the nasopharynx. So it extends between the middle ear and the nasopharynx. The total length of the tube is about 4 centimeters. So the length of the tube, total tube, is about 4 centimeters and connecting the middle ear cavity with that of the nasopharynx. How is the direction of the tube? The tube is directed downwards, forwards and medially. So if it is exactly in this way, so it is downwards, forwards and medially. The direction of the tube is always downwards, forwards and medially. Now in case of infants, the tube is not making any angle, whereas in case of adults, the tympanic end will make an angle of 45 degrees with that of the horizontal plane. So tympanic end will make an angle of 45 degrees with the horizontal plane, but in case of infants, the auditory tube is more horizontal. It does not make any angle. So the regurgitation of milk, especially in infants, the milk regurgitation is common from the oropharynx to the nasopharynx and the auditory tube, through the auditory tube into the middle ear cavity or the tympanic membrane. So that is one clinical aspect. So there will be questions which will be asked to you. What is the length? So the total length of the auditory tube, it can be asked. The clinical aspect the questions can be according to the length. They will tell you to mention the length, or also the direction. The direction of the auditory tube is also important. So if it starts from the middle ear cavity, it is directed downwards, forwards and medially. So direction is also one important point for the auditory tube. Now in this diagram, you can see that here we have seen the middle ear cavity. Okay. And this is the bony part. We have classified and told you that there are two parts of the tube. That is the bony part of the tube, and there is a cartilaginous part of the tube. So it is an osseo-cartilaginous tube. So and a very important point is it is actually an osseo-cartilaginous, means it has a bony component, osseo-cartilaginous. So it has a bony component and it has a cartilaginous component. What type of cartilage is the ET tube or the eustachian tube or the auditory tube? The cartilage is an elastic fibrocartilage or the elastic cartilage. So it is an elastic cartilage. Okay. So these are some important points that can be asked in your MCQ question and short answer questions. Okay. So now what is the mucosa which lines the auditory tube? There is a mucosa which lines the auditory tube, and that mucosa is a pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium with goblet cells, and the cilia will beat towards the nasopharynx. So the beating of the cilia towards the nasopharynx is very important because it will prevent the ear infection. So it will drain the dust particles and it will prevent the infections. Okay. So now, this you can see over here. This is the ear, and you have the external acoustic meatus, and you have the tympanic membrane over here. So this is the tympanic membrane. This is the middle ear cavity, and you can see over here, this is the bony part of the eustachian tube, and this is the eustachian tube which will go and open in the nasopharynx. Okay. So this is how the middle ear cavity is getting connected with the nasopharynx. Now this tympanic membrane is vibrating, and these vibrations will be passed on to the inner ear. And so this proper functioning of the middle ear is very important for, and maintenance of the pressure, atmospheric pressure, is very important for proper vibration to be transmitted. So that is what an eustachian tube is very important, because eustachian tube will properly maintain the pressures on either side of the, either one side is nasopharynx and one side is middle ear cavity, and thus the atmospheric pressure will be maintained so that the pressure outside the tympanic membrane and in the nasopharynx is equalized in these two cavities. So coming to the animation, you can see that this is the cartilaginous part, this is the bony part, and if we go back and see the main diagram, that is the middle ear cavity and this is the pharyngeal end. So we go back to this diagram, you can see that there are two muscles which are intimately related to the eustachian tube, is the levator veli palati and the tensor veli palati muscles. Okay, so these are the two muscles, and this is the palatine or the soft palate or the palatine aponeurosis. So this is the levator veli palati, and this is the tensor veli palati and the levator veli palati. Okay, and this is the soft cartilaginous part, and this is the bony part, and this is the middle ear cavity. You can see over here, and this is the soft palate. So basically it is coming to the soft palate. Okay,